Do I pick on people that are stupid? Absolutely. I guess I'm just going to have to get over it because that is how life works. I think it belongs right in front of the poll. Your host is just completely broken, not only mentally and emotionally, but of course physically, which is where I really shine. And that's just a loss that I'm just going to carry for as long as I'm going to carry it. Given my mental and emotional baggage is forever. Why punish somebody else because you got busted for something? It's just silly and childish. If I watched my son kill somebody with his feet, I would still pardon him. And I don't know how many times I said honestly. Maybe you should drink every time I said honestly. That would make this show much better.
Hard Rock Lunchbox.
Well, greetings and salutations again, listeners of the Hard Rock Lunchbox, and of course, if you're on YouTube, on Strangerhood TV, watchers of the Top 20. Well, we're crawling up in temperature. It's almost 25 degrees here today in the Northeast, in the Long Island, New York City metropolitan suburban area. It is, still a very cold January 23rd, 2025. It is funny. The date will forever remind me of my father, actually, mainly because it's his birthday. But what's special about, which is what makes me laugh about it right now, is so he was born on January 23rd, 1946, right? So the joke really was, like, if you lay that out, it's 01, 2, 3, 4, 6. Yeah, off by a little bit, which is definitely the way I would describe my father most of the time. Probably more on that later, but it made me laugh because it is indeed the 23rd of 25, which makes it 01, 2, 3, 2, 5, right? We'll get back around to it when he, I guess, turns 90. When he would have turned 99 is, I think, when the complete thing would have been. But it's interesting. I've already heard from my sisters this morning, which is always nice, like a point of connection on that, and my stepmother. So that's good. It seems to be a lot of the bulk of the family chat I have in that area. But anyway, that's what day it is. But it does not take away from the fact that it is just absolutely bitterly and brutally cold here. And it's funny, we had snow, like if you're in the area, obviously I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but we had snow, I guess, on Sunday, and I don't think I could have been more prepared for the snow, which is why we barely got any, as opposed to places like New Orleans, which got like 6 to 8 inches of snow. But of course, the big problem for most people, and certainly for me, it's not so much the snow, but it's the fact that once we have it, and we have a real big Arctic snap like this, the snow sticks around for a really long time, and I, for one, am quite tired of it. Yeah, thanks. I could just use some actual physical warmth. I'm not somebody that traditionally liked wearing multiple shirts because I find it uncomfortable as shirts kind of catch on each other. Just one of my particular pet peeves that tends to bother me. But I cannot seem to survive without multiple shirts these days. So I guess I'm just going to have to get over it because that is how life works, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure I'm not telling most of you anything you don't already know. I have tamed the light stick down a little bit. I'm still in experimental mode with it, but I did find it to be a little distracting, which might be a good thing if you're a regular watcher. Feel free to comment in the video if you thought the distracting was actually better. I was going under the impression that distracting would actually be better than actually watching what's actually happening on the top 20. But you tell me. I mean, there's obviously fans of the light stick. I was considering it moving to the other side, but I think it belongs right in front of the pole. No phrasing. But we do have it on a slow wave mode today. I think we'll just kind of keep trying these different things. It should be less distracting while, albeit being more like a lava lamp, and therefore moderately entertaining or soothing, or I don't know. I suppose if you're high at home when you're watching this, then maybe this is downright enjoyable. So we're just going to keep riding that out for a little while. But now it's time to get some light housekeeping. There is a brand new top 20 video out today. It's the Lincoln Logs one. It has the I talk about what the new senator from Florida had basically said, where she was ready to fight for Trump, and I said that that's not what governance is. It's not what good governance is. But I mean, clearly anybody that's paying even some remote attention knows that that does not matter. Good governance is not what we're talking about. We're talking about fealty and loyalty in our as we onboard all the way to authoritarian rule, fascism, and a brand new American oligarchy, which is not something that anybody really asked for, but here we are, and we're getting it anyway. I do have an interesting thing about Elon Musk that I learned recently, thank you to Ground News, who is not a sponsor of this show, but if they wanted to be, I would be more than happy to take that on. I just do not have the viewer or listenership to probably warrant that. So I do recommend Ground News for absolutely anybody that is interested in seeing some sort of, true levels of media monitoring and bias scores and that kind of stuff. It's a brilliant publication. But I did find something super interesting on there yesterday as I was waiting for my ongoing chiropractic adjustments, because your host is just completely broken, not only mentally and emotionally, but of course physically, which is where I really shine. But yeah, so the representation of the Senate. I also talk about how Kaz RU, Arts and Crafts with Noodle, and Jimmy Carter. So I wasn't sure exactly where I was going to go today. I mean, I have plenty to say about parents, loss of parents, and all that other stuff, but emotionally I just don't necessarily know that I'm really quite up for it. So I mean, I suppose if you have any questions, you know how to reach me on that. But I also wanted to talk about stuff like selective memory that seems to be just running rampant again on social media. And yes, it's my own fault for even being on social media, but I do still have this occasional disgust and outrage that I feel sometimes just needs to get vented. And I know I have this show, and I'm super grateful for the platform that affords me, and my ever increasingly shrinking group of people that I can talk to about these things sometimes affords that balance as well. But sometimes I just need just a few minutes to just fight and argue. I don't know why I have this constant battle with stupidity. I don't know what that particular makeup of me is for. I suppose in a better time, and if I were a better person, it would probably be much more useful to the world and to the people around me to be championing the rights and wrongs of the world, but also just kind of putting forth like a fairly general and basic understanding of the world around us. And as I've gone through my many years here, I have found that a lot of people do lack the ability to basically understand some things. And that's, I mean, while, yeah, it's probably a shortcoming of theirs, but it's not necessarily something, it's not necessarily something that's always their fault. I mean, like as Stephen Wright once famously said, half of the people you meet are going to be less than average, because that's statistically how that works, and it's a fairly appropriate statement for what I'm explaining. So I've always felt the need to just offer up explanations when things don't necessarily seem very clear to people. I know I've had this conversation before. I had it with Jimmy one time during the kind of the onset of all the COVID misinformation, where you really started to see it shine. And I think it was Jimmy that asked me, like, why do you even bother doing that? Like, and the answer was simply, well, I wasn't at first. I mean, I was trying to correct people that were mistaken, and it turns out that I was the one mistaken, because I was under the impression that people wanted to have actual information, and as somebody that always strives to have as much accuracy as possible, at least to know it, and then make my own decisions from there. It seemed like something that other people wanted. Well, I was quickly dismissed on that, because that is not the case. People do not necessarily want to be told when they're incorrect, and they don't necessarily want real world facts and information when they just want to kind of sink in to what they believe. And there's lots of studies on that. The name of it escapes me, the actual phenomenon, but if you're interested, there's a great Adam Ruins Everything about it, so feel free to check that out too. But after that, it morphed into more of I wanted to speak truth in the face of obvious lies and ignorance to people that would look on. And there were definitely people that would message me kind of like on the side about like, oh, I didn't know that, or thank you for clearing that up, and then sometimes even people would just argue with me. Like on occasion, people will bring up a really good point that maybe I didn't think of, or an angle I didn't think of, which I'm always super appreciative. I will say that the one thing I really just cannot stand, and I have a lot of trouble abiding it, is, and you'll see it, if you haven't seen it already, you'll see it now that I've said it. There are people in the world that when confronted with information that they don't agree with, their natural go-to, their default is like, well, what about this guy? Now, or what about this thing? Even when you're talking about something very specific. Like, I on the rare occasions where I actually do post an opinion or something on some sort of social media, which I pretty much only reserve for Facebook at this point, because to be perfectly honest, the people that engage on Facebook really at this point are some sort of just warrior for their cause, which I am not saying I'm not. It's one of the reasons I do it. It's not the main reason I do it. I do it because if I'm posting something like that, it's because I'm looking to pick a fight with somebody, because I'm having some sort of other problem in my regular human existence. And if I'm more of an educational bully than I should be, then I can own that completely. Like, do I pick on people that are stupid? Absolutely. I will absolutely do that, and it makes me feel better. And yeah, that makes me less of a person for doing that. But it's who I am sometimes. Not always. It's just who I am sometimes. And to be perfectly honest, people that are sincere about what they believe in and are interested in having the conversation, I never pick on. Like, I don't belittle people for being dumber. I belittle people for being dumber and loud about it, or adamant, or just completely obnoxious. But that particular position that people take, like you say something and they're like, well, what about this? Like, first of all, have your own conversation if you want. Like, if you want to actually have a dialogue, like, we can do that. But at least address what I've just said. There are people that do that too. They'll be like, yes, you're right about this, or no, you're wrong about this, and this is this other thing that's going on. Like, it's not necessarily what I came here to talk about. And I've actually lost friends over stuff like that. Like, I lost a very good friend doing that, because every single time I would post, he was a super libertarian, and every single time I would post, he would be like, well, what about this and that, and it's like, you gotta stop. And I had said something like, look, dude, I'm not here to get dragged around by your libertarian agenda today. And he took great offense to that. And again, he was a very good friend of mine, somebody I actually respected intellectually, but I got tired of that, and he has not spoken to me since. I haven't seen him, haven't heard from him, blocked me completely, so there's nothing I can do about that. And that's just a loss that I'm just going to carry for as long as I'm going to carry it, which is, given my mental and emotional baggage, is forever, to be perfectly honest. So, but if you want to extrapolate that out, just think back to elementary school, which I guess is really kind of where that stuff used to go down. And I used to see kids get in trouble for doing stuff, and their immediate defense was like, well, Bobby did it. Like, or what about what Sarah's doing? Like, that kind of stuff. Like, to me, it just brings me right back to that, and is probably one of the most childish things you can do as an adult. And I have no problem calling people out on it, because I just find it ridiculous. Like, have the conversation if you want. You want to have your own conversation, have it somewhere else. Like, but definitely don't deflect and put blame on somebody. Like, that's just stupid. In fact, one of the funniest things, if you're a listener of the Howard Stern show, especially the classic Howard Stern show, like one of the funniest things they ever did is when somebody would get in trouble, would be immediately throw somebody else under the bus. Now, it's funny to watch because it's childish and entertaining. But you always think lesser about the person that does it because there's no need to do it. Like, oh my God, I'm in trouble with mom. I'm going to get somebody else in trouble with mom, so I'm not in trouble with mom anymore. I mean, does anybody else feel that way? I mean, like, I would imagine the bulk of my listening audience understands that particular concept because it's not necessary. Like, why punish somebody else because you got busted for something? Like, it's just silly and childish. And basically what's going on now in my, social media world is I have a really big problem with the sweeping pardons of the January 6th rioters that the current administration just released and just put forward. I find it reprehensible to just to blanket pardon people like that is just ridiculous. Like, take an interest in individual cases if you want. But my main issue is anybody that was tried and convicted of assaulting or resisting or instigating with the police officers, and I'm not even talking about accused, and there's been a lot of people like, well, what about this thing? Like, that's just either a conspiracy theory or conjecture or hyperbole. And, I'm being as specific as possible. People that were tried and convicted, and I'll even throw in people that admitted to it or pled guilty to those things, they deserve to do their particular sentence. And I didn't even go so far on social media because I do not want to open that can of worms, but I can tell you guys, what do you think would have happened to all, the Black Lives Matter protesters that assaulted and instigated and resisted with police? Do you think they got pardons? Do you think they should have gotten pardons? Absolutely not. I am not somebody that believes in defunding the police. I am somebody that believes very much that the police should be held accountable for when they do things wrong. I do not support this whole idea of indemnity. I think that is ridiculous. I think you need to have review boards. And much like I've spoken previously about medical review boards, it can't be a whole inside thing because you're going to protect your own. That is generally what people do when they're on a team. And I support teams probably more than anybody else that I know because it's something that I just truly believe in to my core, at my core. But I don't see any good reason for people just putting forth we absolutely should release people and free people that have attacked our police officers. Feel how you want about police, but in our society, the police departments and police officers are the representation of our rules of law. And I'm not interested in discussing bad apples. There are bad apples in everything, right? There just are. But that is what we as a society have agreed to as our physical manifestation of the front line of the rule of law. And I think if you violate that, I think there's a penalty that should be there. I just do. That's how that is. And the people that are arguing with me about it are just making ridiculous arguments. I had somebody actually say, well, 16 of them weren't pardoned. First of all, the number's incorrect. It was 14 that weren't pardoned. And those 14 had their sentences commuted, which means they got released. And that includes the Rhodes guy, the Oath Keeper, that got 18 years for seditious conspiracy. That's a big deal. And yeah, he didn't get a pardon, but he got his sentence commuted and he's home now. That seems wrong to me. Somebody actually conspired to commit sedition, which is basically undermining the U.S. government. I don't think that deserves a commutation of a sentence. He was convicted tried and convicted in a court of law in the United States, and he went to jail. And he should have, because that's exactly what the crime is. And then you've got other people maybe Biden shouldn't have done all these pardons. Most of Biden's pardons were for weed offenders, which I thought was a really good idea. And then there's definitely a more controversial one where he pardoned people that actually haven't done anything yet, because he was worried about political prosecution. Now, the incoming administration has said flat out that they are going to go after and investigate and prosecute people that, in my opinion, haven't done anything wrong. But my opinion doesn't matter. Like, if you think they did something wrong, have a hearing, convict them. And if they got convicted, then yeah, I think they should also go to jail and not be pardoned. I do believe that. And somebody even said, what about pardoning Biden's son? Now, the reality is, should a presidential pardon be allowed to pardon family members? Probably not. But it is. Like, it's in the Constitution. It's in Article 2, I believe, of the Constitution. You can fact check me on that one, because I can't guarantee that it's Article 2, but the executive branch has the ability, or the president has the ability, to relieve grievances or whatever the wording is. It's in the Constitution, so there you go. But as far as, the president pardoning his own son, like, I have to tell you, like, if I watched my son kill somebody with his feet, I would still pardon him. He's my son, and that's what that means to me. So I think we can kind of all understand that. Like, I don't necessarily know that many people would let their kids go to jail. I mean, I just don't know that they would, and I just love all these people that are just, like, citing this as a problem, like they wouldn't do it. Like, I've got news for you. Anybody that's coming to me with that particular stance or approach is definitely somebody that would do that. And somebody that would do worse. And honestly, most of them are the ones that are defending the pardons of people like the Oath Keepers, which I don't think is a good idea. I also think it violates the idea of what the whole pardon is about. Like, I do. And, constitutional scholars can figure that out. But the reality is, it doesn't matter. It's done. It's happened. But the people that are supporting it, I want them all to understand that what you are speaking for and what you are supporting is violence against police officers, violence against our rule of law, violence against our actual country and what it stands for. And to make it about anything less than that or anything other than that, it's just subterfuge, and it's childish, and it's stupid. You can believe what you want about January 6th, and yeah, there were hundreds, maybe even thousands of people there that were peacefully protesting and doing all that. I don't think any of them have been sent to jail. You can fact check me on that as well, but they have video of all this stuff, and they have accounts, and they have, all this information, and again, people that pled guilty to these things, that is, in my opinion, irrefutable. So it's not necessarily something that's a subjective sort of thing. Like, A and B did C and D, and therefore it's time to pay the price for that. That whole don't do the crime if you can't do the time, like, I feel like that stands here. But whether you agree with what happened and you're one of those people that refuses to believe that there was a riot, and also the people that keep spewing the Antifa riots, like, you're just an idiot. You are just so goddamn stupid at this point. Like, you shouldn't even be part of the conversation. Like, as much as I am for, like, intelligence tests to, like, vote, like, the fact that people can be this stupid and uneducated and just dumb are like those that Black Mirror, I think, when you could see, like, how many days somebody had left. Like, everybody should be wearing their IQ on their shirt. Like, I feel like we're at that point right now. I mean, the only thing that's really good about these people that spew this nonsense is, like, it's one less person I have to ask for advice on literally anything. So I guess that saves me some time, and I guess that serves its own purpose. But, the other part with the whole selective memory, I don't really have time to go into now because I've just talked too long about it. But, like, so many people that I just see blaming Biden for stuff that happened during Trump. Like, I had it just recently where somebody was talking about, the vaccines that we were forced to take and the shutdown of the economy and all that other stuff that Biden did, which is not true at all. Like, for those of you that just cannot seem to focus, like, those shutdowns happened in 2020. And if you can't figure out who was president during 2020, or even find those clips where President Trump was patting himself on the back for fast-tracking those vaccines, getting them through the FDA with lesser safety standards, in my opinion, like, this all happened in 2020. Like, you guys know who was president then, right? Like, it's a knowable thing. It just is. And if you choose to not know it, then you're the problem. I don't know how many times I have to say this, and I probably should stop saying it because it just doesn't change anything. Like, anybody that is this person isn't going to believe or accept what I say, which makes them, in my opinion, even dumber. This is a fact. It is not subjective. There was a different president in 2020. President Biden did not take office till January of 2021. Blame him for stuff that he did. And by the way, stop blaming him for Ukraine. He does not send money to Ukraine. He asked Congress to send money to Ukraine, and Congress sent money to Ukraine. It's that simple. Be mad at the right people. Be mad at the people that have done things wrong, and be mad at them for the right things. It is a remarkable state of this country where people keep blaming other people for things that either they didn't do or they didn't do exactly as people believe, and they just offer no understanding for other things that are going on and other things that contribute to that particular issue. It is such a waste of time. It is a waste of breath. And honestly, it's just a waste of our human experience and our human condition. And I honestly... And I don't know how many times I said honestly. Maybe you should drink every time I said honestly, and that would make this show much better. Would certainly make it much better for me, but unfortunately I have an extremely long day today, so I cannot be drinking during the show. But maybe later, maybe over the weekend, I don't know. But I'm going to stop talking because honestly I'm completely out of steam today. There's only so many ways I can get cut out from under me today and just make it through the rest of the day. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to play some music. Let's get some locals onto the box here, because that's always a great way for me to start the show. And I don't know, if I have more to say, I'll probably say it, because that seems to be what I do. But I'm going to play something from the Tallest Trees in the Universe. They were a great band, very short-lived band here on Long Island. I miss them terribly. I wish they would get back together and put out some great music, but at least we have this.